Well, hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota podcast. My name is Mpho and I've got Tim Lace here with me. It's a Thursday, so that means we've got an interview or some sort. So that's going to be quite exciting. But remember, before you do anything, please follow us on X and at Full Quota Pod and subscribe to our One World Sports Radio YouTube channel. And also, please follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you're an audio person like myself. Please do rate, review. We love the comments. We love the engaging with you guys. And yeah, we've been engaging on X these days, and it was all thanks to Tim. So Tim, how are you doing?
All good, man. All good. Looking forward to this. I wasn't sure we would be having a conversation with Gordon so quickly early in the season after our chat at the beginning of the season. But all good, all good.
But we're always going to have a conversation with him. And so Tim's let the cat out the bag. We have the newly crowned CSA T20 Division 2 champion coach with us to discuss his season and everything else. Because after Gordon came on our show, Limpopo just went on a run of wins. And I think he's got a 52% win rate in Limpopo. So, so we've got the Impalas coach. Let's bring him on. Hi, Gordon. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. It must be your program and the interview that started it, not me.
Yes, it's actually quite interesting because I remember when we spoke, you were going to Limpopo. You didn't necessarily know what the structures were going to be. You had an idea, but then we sit here 6-7 months later and you have a trophy in your cabinet, a whole lot of wins, and you were the second best team across all formats in Division 2. So that is really, really impressive. I remember you saying that obviously you were going to try to figure out what was going to happen, what the cricket structures were like, and you know how you're going to get this team going. You had some guys coming in there. What was the one thing that surprised you in terms of what they had that you could use to help you build this team for the season?
The one thing would be difficult to put a finger on. Obviously, one or two of the local talents, I don't know how you want to word it, whether you want to say that I backed them or whether I gave them another opportunity or whatever you want to call it, but certainly they stood up and got counted. And with what we had in terms of contracted players, I wasn't sure what I had to work with, and to be honest, they responded fantastically. As obviously, as you say, second overall and finished the season with the T20 trophy, which is obviously hugely exciting for Limpopo cricket.
Yeah, no, it is.
Indeed, a couple of weeks ago we've been talking about the Warriors in Division 1, and I, from looking from afar, I look and I see very similar ways of way you go about it in terms of everybody is making an impact in your team. Everybody is contributing. There isn't a star that is shining brightly above everybody else. Even if you look at the stats across the formats, everybody has contributed within that team. So how important is that something you noticed, and how important was that to provide you with success?
Oh, it's massive. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. You know, it's obviously Ruan Husbrook was the leading run scorer and was consistently good in the whole competition of the T20. But there were times when Cesare got a couple of 50s, one against the Knights and one obviously in the final. There was times when Monefenta tipped in with a very useful 40 when we were under pressure, and then the real surprise was obviously Dan van der Merwe with the bat as well, who tipped in not only on the final but also in the early games as well when we sent him in as a bit of a go and enjoy yourself batsman, and he actually came off. He played sensibly and produced some runs. And then obviously on the bowling front, Eldred Hawkin, we all know, is a class act, so that wasn't a surprise that he was the most economical bowler in the tournament. but obviously, local boy Donatello Radabe, I hope I've said that right so he doesn't swear at me, was an absolute sensation. And obviously, Kahiso was Moleste. I hope I'm saying these right, otherwise they're going to curse me. But
We'll
was
give you
Teddy
lessons
Eddie
after
as
this.
usual. As I say, I call him the racist bowler now because he's just brilliant with the white ball, and we just got to work on his red ball cricket now.
And it's actually quite interesting, obviously, because you had a squad that had to cover all three, and obviously in the white ball formats, it looked like you were going from strength to strength. But then it was largely in the red ball where Limpopo effectively put their hand up in finishing third. Some huge wins. There was this big win that you had over here on my side of the world at Willamore Park,
Mm.
which hurt me mostly, but I was really happy for you, Gordon.
Sorry.
Um, and obviously for a new franchise, obviously the longer format of the game is the one where ones would normally struggle. But what did you find? Because it looked like it just took to 4-day cricket like a duck to water. Like what did you impart on them? What did you find there that could help you with that?
Um, yeah, I certainly I'm one that I always think 4 day cricket is our test, acid test, because
Mm,
obviously T20 one or two players can play well and you win a game of cricket. Um, 1 day cricket is a little bit tougher, being 50 overs. You have to perform a little bit better, but obviously 4 days exposes good teams and bad teams, and to have led the table for the whole season basically until the last game when we lost to the Knights and sorry lost to the Northern Cape in a fantastic game of cricket.
mm,
We were obviously doing well. I mean, we lost I think the first or second game we lost to the Knights badly, where they got 600 and something. We bowled dreadfully. We got bowled out twice. We didn't bat particularly
mm,
well, and I started thinking this is going to be a very long season. And then suddenly, a little bit of a rocket up their backside and what have you, and a little bit of um, how can we say, laying things out how they should be done, and worrying more about partnerships and getting runs on boards and taking the pressure off the individual and making it more about team. Yeah, any team that scores 280, 300 is in a 4 day game. So it's
mm.
not about one man getting 100 consistently. It's about three or four partnerships to make sure that we get 300, even if you chip in with a 20 or a 30. And then obviously in bowling is the same thing. You work in pairs, and to win a 4 day competition, the first thing I'm sitting down looking at next season coming up is I need 120 wickets. So
Yes.
first and foremost, I need a bowler that's going to put his hand up and get me 30, 35 wickets. And that was probably the gap this year. We only had Eldred Hawkin for half the games. He's got 19 wickets, which if he played all the games, that could have got us to the final. Um, and then young Patana was actually my leading wicket taker. I think I'm right in saying 21 or 22 wickets.
Yeah.
And then Jesse got 16. And then, as I say, Khwadi, I've teased him about the racist part because he played in most of the games and only got something like 9 wickets in the whole season when, particularly in the fourth innings, we were leaving big totals like 400 and
Mm.
350. And that's where you expect your spinner to come to the party. And I think, to be honest, he'll look back on it and think, yeah, he had a disappointing red ball season, and he'll want to put that right next season. But certainly, I'd like to turn that 9 into 25 wickets,
Oh.
and as I say, get a bowler who can get me 30 wickets, and then the others chip in with 25s, and that's how I get to my 120 wickets, which hopefully will get me certainly into the final. Let's say.
Yes, and you speak about obviously Gaudi Similef and the spin in South Africa, spin bowlers in this long format actually get in the wickets. The leading wicket taker in Division One for all those years has always mostly been a spinner. So
Mm.
that's actually quite interesting to see. And but nonetheless, I think from a cricketing perspective, I I for one thought maybe in the white ball format you'd actually excel, and in the red ball it'd be better than the previous year, and you'd get more wins. But it wasn't at this rate, and it was really refreshing to see because it felt like we were watching a new threat for Division Two rise up, and nobody had an answer for you, which is also pretty
I don't know about
pretty
that.
amazing.
But that,
Yes, Tim?
that is obviously my ambition and my job, or my whatever you want, goals going forward, is I want Limpopo to be taken seriously rather than being we've got 5 teams or 6 teams plus Limpopo and Mpumalanga.
Mm,
I think it's important that we put our hand up and say, right, we're here to compete with all the others, even though they're more established, they've been around longer. I know people are going to say Limpopo's been around for 100 years, but we've not been involved in first class cricket, or top flight cricket, should we call it, like all the other teams. I mean, when you go to Border, there's a history there. There's a test
mm,
ground to play on. You go to Northern Cape, there's an international ground to play on in Kimberley now, and obviously with the Knights, the same thing. And then you got Mpumalanga and Limpopo, one playing on a school and one playing on a ground that needs a lot of attention, shall we say. So obviously from the players' side as well, that is very sort of, it hits you as soon as you walk on the ground. That you're walking onto Buffalo Park, or
mm,
you're walking onto the Knights ground, and it's got a tradition. So this has been a fantastic year for me, in the sense of I think the boys have matured phenomenally. The game against Northern Cape, where we didn't get into the final, was one of the best 4-day games I've ever seen. It went from
yes.
all we needed to do was draw to be in the final. We were 76 for 6, in deep trouble by lunch. And then Mono Fenta came to the party, and I think he just fell short of his 100, or I can't remember if he just sneaked over the 100, but he got us up to a 270 odd, which was competitive, and then they went past us, and then we were caught between, shall we bat for time, or do we, and the boys batted a long time, but, we learned from it, and we ended up losing the game with literally sort of 3 or 4 overs left on the 4th day. And obviously it hit the boys very hard not to be going to Bloemfontein to play in the final. So as a growing, it's, from the team I took to Kimberley in the first game, who lost a game
Mm,
they should have won, to lose a game like they did in the 4-day game. You could see the growth in the players, that no longer is it, oh, well, it's now, oh, God, should have won, should have hung on, should have done this. It was such a change in attitude from the players, and that to me is the most exciting thing.
And it's visible, even if you're watching on the live stream, the intensity within the way that you play and you've gone on throughout the season, that's been noticeable for me. And it's obviously a huge plus for what you've done. Just to touch on what you said earlier about the importance of doing well. I'm a Worcestershire fan, and they did
Shame.
and yes, quite, yes, quite. They had a meeting recently, and they talked about the importance of winning white ball tournaments. The red ball
Yeah.
is fantastic, but actually, what generates money, what generates sponsorship, what generates eyeballs to us is winning white ball tournaments. So how important is it that you have won this tournament for those reasons, to get eyeballs, sponsorship, money into Limpopo cricket, so that you can build on this, and this is not just a once-off?
Yeah. Look, let me start by saying you've got one of the most beautiful grounds in the world, let alone in the country, when it's not underwater. Worcester's a fantastic place to play cricket. I've had many nice memories there, that's for sure. Yeah, okay. What you're talking about there is absolutely 100% true, but it's also more the administration problems than mine, because you're now talking about getting bums on seats, generating revenue, getting sponsorships, and that we all know comes down to T20 cricket, white ball cricket, and the fact that the crowds want to go and watch that. For me as a coach, I'm still working the other way down, that the 4-day cricket is the most important to me, because I think if we can get the techniques and the skills levels good enough for 4-day cricket, you can always adapt to 50 over cricket, and then obviously to 20 over cricket, because A classic example is somebody like Daniel van der Merwe, and Corey was explaining to me how I've got to do all the KPIs and that yesterday, which is very interesting and fascinating. And we went through, he just perchance picked out Daniel van der Merwe, and he's had a fantastic T20 tournament because he's basically gone at like 9 and over, but he's picked up a wicket literally every 8 balls. So
Mm.
he's got lots of wickets. He's a highlights package in his bowling, and then obviously batting. His strike rate's 150, and he's averaged 25 or whatever. And that's sort of why where are Mumbai Indians now to sign him sort of statistics. But the reality is, if we now take that to 4-day cricket and 50 over cricket, the inconsistency you can't afford. You can't afford to bowl him for 10 unless he's obviously striking like he is. But I mean, we all know that's the pressure of T20 cricket, that the batters come out and play rash shots, or particularly in Division 2, as I saw, there's a little bit of panic every time there's a tidy over or something doesn't go their way. So that's where my focus on getting the techniques and the skill levels up so that they're good enough to play 4-day cricket.
Mm.
If they can play really good 4-day cricket, the 1-day cricket and the T20 will come along. It will fall into place.
And
Which doesn't put bums on
did
seats, and I'm going to get pressure from the admin, but okay.
yeah, and Gordon, speaking about that, because you did mention that in our initial interview, it was getting 4-day cricket right and then going through. But obviously, as the season went along, um, because we started, I think, with the 1-day cup, and so were you able to get
Yeah.
this team to adapt to the different to adapt to the different formats to the point where it felt like when you got to T20 cricket, everything you're speaking about actually kind of clicked.
Yeah, I think you're right there. Yeah. I think we started with the 1-days this year, but I think that was to do with the World Cup. I'm not sure.
Mm.
Maybe it's an ongoing thing. Look, when I was with the Highfield Lions, um, we made a huge mistake because we were going to the Champions League, which I see the other day people are talking about bringing back, and I hope they do because it was a fantastic tournament where the winners of the T20s from all over, or not all over, but from 6, 8 countries got together and played this tournament once a year for 2 or 3 weeks, and obviously fantastic experience. And we went to India in South Africa, where we got to the final. And we made the big mistake when we went to India because our whole focus was on T20 cricket because we were going to the Champions League. And everything was white ball, smacking it out the ground, bowling Yorkers, bowling slow balls. And we had a poor tournament the second time. The first time we went, we actually played 2 Supersport games, as it was then, before we went to the Champions League, which I think worked really well for us. And we got to the final because our bowlers, and we had a very good bowling attack. We had a very good team at that stage, to be honest. They actually got time in the middle. Bowlers got spells under their belt, bowled 50 overs in a game or whatever, or 40 overs in a game. Batsmen got hundreds by batting 300 balls instead of just going out there and slogging. And we ended up getting to the final. And as I say, the next time we focused on T20 cricket, and I don't think we won a game when we were in India. And it was purely because the guys, I don't think their skill levels were quite back to where they should be, if I'm honest. And certainly that's how I've taken it into my coaching now with these guys, that if I can get them good enough to bat sessions in 4-day cricket, I can adapt that to a more attacking game in the shorter version. To give you some idea of what I'm talking, because it probably sounds like I'm talking a load of sort of gibberish, you take Joe Root, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I think Joe Root is a class act, and I'd have him in my test team any day of the week and twice on Sundays. But I'd also have him in my 1-dayer and my T20 side because the guy's a class act. And I think he's proof, as was Brendan McCullum or Chris Gale, because everyone forgets AB de Villiers, Virat Kohli. These are all guys that average 45, 50 in test matches. They're
Yes.
not just clowns that go out there and play T20 cricket. And it's very rare that it goes the other way, where a guy's an exceptional T20 player and can't really play test cricket. You're probably going to throw somebody like Maxwell at me.
But Maxwell's not that bad.
As a guy that does really well in T20 and struggles in Test. Is he not that bad? Okay, I thought you were going to throw somebody
He's
like him
not a
at me, and
bad
then I
Test
was
player,
actually going
but
to sort of...
yeah. Look,
Yeah,
I think your point makes
he's not a great.
sense, right? Australia
Yeah.
have like a whole conveyor belt, and I think they're coming out with left-handers now, which is something else that is gonna be quite fascinating. But yeah, like, and I think your point is well made, because that's where I've always think you need a base to be able to then play those out of this world, or those out of this world shots. Um, Gordon. Yes. Well, technology is hurting us here. As you saw, we lost Gordon and his sound, mostly, and so we'll probably redo this another time, probably at the back end or at the start of the new season. But we want to say thank you very much to Gordon for joining us. I think we've gotten quite a lot to think about, right? Obviously, there were a few more questions we wanted to go through, rather changes in the structure, what he's liked, what he didn't like, and maybe even what he told his team on the day of the final. But we'll get to all of those at another time. Tim, what did you make of Gordon and what he's and how he's managed to achieve quite a lot in such a short space of time?
I think he put a lot of praise on his players. He put a lot of praise on the fact that they, after a chastening start to the season, which he mentioned, having to concede 600, but he doesn't like putting praise on himself. I think he deserves a huge amount of credit, because the way he's turned this team around is quite remarkable, with largely the same players that were there last season. I think he deserves a huge amount of credit, and I think the future is bright, because one of the things I wanted to touch on him was what he liked, the fact that the average age of the squad is 25. It's got Masonda and Hawken, who are both
Yes.
over 35, but outside of that, average age is 25. So they've got a lot of youth there to work with, and I think he deserves a huge amount of credit for what he achieved. And just to add, in terms of win percentage, so not in terms of where they ended up in the logs, in terms of win percentage, it's the second best in the division, behind the Knights. That is a huge credit to what he did.
You know, and that's true, and to a certain extent, that's something that needs to be praised, and something that franchises around the country need to look at. I think he's going to be a Coach of the Year winner, if not candidate, for what he's done. And if you can watch that final on the CSA website, right, on the YouTube channel, right, you'll be able to see a crowd there, and the growth of cricket in Limpopo was great, and the players that he said he was trusting on to come through for him, and they did. Daniel van der Merwe, who else did he name? Don Khatebe, who came through for him. Morne Fenter as well. And that's what you want, right? Coaching is about development, and I think you can see even in the minutes that he spent with us, he spoke a lot about development in that last section when he spoke about test players being able to play for longer format players being able to adapt their skills to one day and T20, and to a certain extent he got that to a T. And he may have given you a bit of the secret sauce, which is I think he did there, in terms of what it is, because we sit here all the time and saying this team is not a T20 team, this team isn't a one-day team, but most of the times it's just someone being able to teach someone how to adapt their game, how to strike the ball a lot quicker, how to bowl different types of balls over and above your stock balls, right? And so to a certain extent that was pretty awesome to hear. So yeah, I think this is the best time for us to close it off. Thank you very much for joining us. We will have Gordon Parsons with us at a later stage, because the new season is going to bring new things. Tim, it could even bring promotion. Do you think they can do it?
They certainly could. If I remember correctly, at the when we last chatted to him at the beginning of the season, he said within 3 years. And I wasn't sure that was possible. Going on what they had done previously, I thought that was maybe a bit too optimistic. I tell you what, after this season, that's very possible. If they can keep the same nucleus of players, and as you rightly pointed out, if they can get another wicket-taking bowler in that lineup, it's very possible.
Game. Yeah,
it's very possible that they could get promotion. It wasn't a pipe dream. That would be disingenuous. It was something that was unlikely at the beginning of the season. It's now very possible. It's now a possibility, which is a huge credit to everyone involved in Limpopo cricket.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. That's really true. And yeah, congratulations to Limpopo once again. I hope this is the start of something amazing. And as Gordon says, he wanted Limpopo to be taken seriously as a franchise. And after this win, they will be, because it is one of the most incredible feats we'll have ever experienced in cricket this year. This win, it's probably going to go down with one of the most incredible wins we could have, because I think it was also one of the most unlikely wins. And I think this team showed that as the season went by, that unlikeliness became a lot more likely, and it became something that became more of a possibility. And yeah, that's what sport, and that's what we love it. But yeah, no, Tim, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Coach Gordon. Wish you all the best in your rest and relaxation back at home in Poch. And yeah, there's a lot of T20 Challenge games in Division 1 on the go. Obviously, there's a full slate on Sunday, but also there's 3 games on Friday as well. So please do check them out and go and support at your local. There's a game in Potchefstroom if you want to probably go see Coach Gordon. I'm assuming he might make it out there to go watch some Division 1 teams, but maybe it's a scouting mission. You never know. There might be a Western Province player wanting to go to Limpopo. Who knows? But yeah, outside of that, have a great day. Goodbye. And lesale kakahiso.